All right, let's think about how to solve this next problem. As always, anytime we're given text, we want to identify key pieces of information. So let's start with that. This says only 75% of Mrs. Stroh's students responded to the survey since the others did not have TikTok. How many total students are in Mrs. Stroh's classes? All right, so let's start off with key information. 75%, I would say only is important as well. Only 75% of Mrs. Stroh's students responded to the survey since the others did not have TikTok. So we know only 75 responded, and we want to know how many total students are in Mrs. Stroh's classes. And remember, it's always a good idea to box the question. That way you know what you're going back to and referencing and trying to answer. So we know only 75% of the students responded, and we want to know how many total students are in Mrs. Stroh's classes based on that information. So we want to start off by asking ourselves, are we looking for a part here, or are we looking for a whole? So think about that for a second. All right, based on the evidence in this text, I would say we are trying to find the whole, right? Because it's telling us only 75% participated, and we want to find what the 100% is then. How many total students are in Mrs. Stroh's classes? And remember, guys, when we are finding a whole, when we're solving percent problems, we are going to use division when finding a whole. And the reason why is because that is going to give us the entire picture. And you guys might be thinking, we talked about this in class as well. Well, doesn't division make a number smaller? Yeah, good thinking, but that would only be if you're dividing by a number greater than 1. In this case, when we turn our percentages into decimals, they're smaller than 1, so wouldn't it make sense that dividing by a smaller number will make it into a bigger one? For example, if you had 5 sandwiches and you were dividing by 1/2, you would be cutting those all into 1/2, right? And you would end up with 10. It's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal like we do with fractions. All right, so the first thing we're going to have to do to find that is we are going to have to, first of all, have a number of students that took the survey. So we would do the math here, and we'd get a total of 300 students took the survey. And then from there, we would want to divide by the percent that we know took it. But of course, in order to do that, we have to convert our percent into a decimal. And remember, there's a few ways to do that. So first of all, our little trick that we know is that if we just move a decimal place 2 times to the left, so 2 times to the left, but I went to the right, 1, 2, that would give us 0.75, and that would be 75% as a decimal. But let's talk about the logic behind that. Why does that make sense? So when we're converting 75%, don't you guys agree that any percent is a part to whole ratio in which the whole is 100? So we would know it's that as a fraction. And of course, to convert a fraction to a decimal, we could just simply divide 75 divided by 100, and that would give us 0.75. So here is the logic behind why 0.75 is that as a decimal. But of course, we know based on this reasoning right here, we know that the trick is anytime we're converting any percent, we just move the decimal place 2 places to the left, and that will give us that. All right, so this last step, now that we have all of the information needed, all you have to do is simply do it on your calculator, and then make sure you have that final answer. That will be whatever that comes out to. Don't trust yourself though. Maybe we made a simple mistake somewhere. A way that you can check it is you can make sure that whatever that number is, you're going to just plug it in and make sure when you get that you get 75%. So you would get 0.75 when you're dividing it, because that's telling you that 300 is 75% of this larger number when you divide. All right, so that'll be a way to check your work. All right, go ahead and solve.